1. I'm non-binary and 18 years old. I work at my nearby theme park's haunted houses for the Halloween season. I am usually what we call ops, or basically the line security, making sure guests know where to go, not cut the lines, etc. I've done this for 2 years and surprisingly never had an encounter with a Karen. Until tonight. Now for some context, we have this super long and somewhat windy line that's guarded by low metal fences for our guests to go through when we open until around the last 15 minutes of the night. It definitely is a bit of a walk, and some teens and younger adults decide to try to hop over the fences to get into line without going through the long line. That is a huge no-no. No one is allowed to hop the fences, in the very case they cut someone in line, hurt themselves, or whatever. And for some additional context, I am a very anxious person, especially when negative yelling is involved. It doesn't have to be direct yelling at me. Any form of negative yelling in my range of hearing is enough to get me worked up, so you can imagine if it's at me. Now on to the story. It's about an hour before the night closes, about 10 p.m. The line is starting to thin out a bit, but there's still people waiting to get into the haunt after we close. I'm stationed at the very start of the entrance to the haunt, looking for any potential fence hoppers and helping guests with directions. As I am, I turn left to see a huge group of girls at one section of the fence about a couple of feet away. From what I could remember, there were 3 or 4 girls, one seemingly being around 10 or 11, while the rest were 14, are already in the line, and 3 girls, also 14, are, you guessed it, hopping the fence. As the final girl gets over, I sprint over just as they begin walking and stop them. "Hey, stop, don't jump over the fence," I yell. The girls turn around in shock. Girl 1 says, "Huh? What's wrong?" "Sorry, but you can't be jumping over the fence." "What? We were just meeting up with our group," says another girl. "Still, you aren't supposed to hop the fence. You could have just got in line regularly, and you'll be cutting people that are getting in line." Now, a small error on my part. I thought there were people entering the line right as I dashed off, but the line was empty, and I may have either been seeing things or they were just far away. I don't know. "But there isn't even anyone behind us. We aren't cutting anyone." "Even so, you're not allowed to jump the fence. It's against the rules." Sorry about that," says girl 2, "but yeah, they were just trying to meet up with us so they can not go through that long line." "Exactly," says girl 1. "Now just let us go." By this point, more guests were starting to get closer, and may begin watching what was happening if I don't get the 3 girls moved. "No, look, the 3 of you who jumped have to go to the back of the line." "What? That's not fair. We didn't even cut the line." "There's still people on their way." By this point, people began moving, and I kept an eye on these girls as I waited for someone to come and help me. And no, I didn't have a walkie-talkie on me, because we were on a shortage since some of them were broken. Luckily, one security person was on his way, and I waved him down. "Hey, can you help me here quickly?" "Hey, what's going on?" "There's this group of girls where some of their group hopped the fence." I pointed at the group. He nods as we walked over to them again. "Excuse me, girls, OP has told me some of you hopped the fence."
Well, we did not."
"Well, this person clearly saw some of you do that, and I'm sure they've told you that isn't allowed."
"We were just meeting up with the rest of our group," says girl 1.
I want to add that there was a lot of back and forth with multiple speaking at once, but I'll just keep it to the essentials here.
"And we didn't even cut anyone. There wasn't anyone behind us."
The security guard turns to me. "Well, did you?" There were people on their way, but they were really far. He thinks for a second and speaks up again. "Well, even if you didn't cut anyone behind you, it's still not allowed to jump the fence. OP, do you remember who the girls were?" I nod and point at the 3 entitled girls. He nods and turns to them. "Okay, you 3, come with me. We won't have you exit the line, just sending you to the back."
"What?"
"Sorry, but it's a policy."
"Shouldn't we go with them since they're with us and we're a big group together?"
No, just those 3, as they were the ones the OP saw breaking the rules. You can all stay where you are."
"This isn't fair. We didn't cut anyone," says girl 1. "Yeah, and now other guests are passing us. How is any of this fair?"
Guys, it's fine. We told them they can pass us. As this does, the security guard's manager approaches us. The guard informs him of the situation, then gets my input, and then the manager begins talking to the girls, but to no avail. It's all just a broken record at this point. We try to tell them they jumped the fence. They claim they weren't cutting, and just wanted to meet up with their group, which I do believe. Us telling them that doesn't excuse them jumping the line because it's against the rules, etc. The security guard manager then says, "All right, girls, listen. Either the three of you that broke the rules go to the back of the line, or all of you will. Otherwise, we'll need to ask you to leave." The girls talk amongst themselves. Evidently, the four nice girls decided they'll just go to the back of the line with the entitled girls, much to the entitled girls' reluctant distaste but acceptance. I sigh internally in relief, thinking this is going to all be resolved somewhat peacefully, as we help the girls get to the back of the line while asking other guests to make way. But this wouldn't be an entitled parent's story without an entitled parent, right? Because they were apparently in line too. Yeah, you read that right. Not one, not two, but three. Oh joy. As we led the girls up, one of the EMs stops us.
"Hey, what do you think you're doing?"
"We gotta go to the back of the line."
"What? Why?"
"Ma'am, could you and the rest of your party please move out of the way?"
"No, not until you tell us why you're forcing our girls out of line,"
says entitled mother two.
"Well, OP got some of them hopping over the fence, which is against the rules. We're just sending them to the back of the line."
I nod in answer. "Yes, ma'am, they could have been cutting someone else getting in line."
"What? That's ridiculous. They'd never do such a thing."
"Well, what we've been told by both parties said otherwise. Otherwise, it doesn't seem like these kids were trying to cut anyone. It's still against the rules to jump the fence."
"Well, if that's the case, they can stay with us. They were far ahead of us anyway, so that should be far enough of a distance."
Side note, they weren't. They were at least 10 to 15 people away.
"No, they can't."
"What?"
The security guard manager then responds,
"Look, they broke the rules, and the punishment is sending them to the back, plain and simple."
"No, you can't do that. They're only 14 years old. Do you really expect them to be all by themselves?" "Yeah, and we're their guardians. We know what's best for them. Besides, this could be compensation for them," being me, "lying about our children cutting the lines."
I roll my eyes.
"Ma'am, the girls admitted themselves that those three jumped the fencing. Please just let them go to the back. We're already holding the line up as it is with you standing here."
Guests have been trying to walk around them as this shit show is all going on.
"Do you really think you'll separate us from our kids? You're all delusional."
This went on for a good few minutes, and as it does, I'm growing more and more tense and anxious because of how loud the EMs have been shouting at us. The nice girl seemingly noticed, because she gives me an embarrassed look and says with a small sympathetic smile, "I'm so sorry about all this." I smile back and say, "No worries, thank you." Apparently, the argument between security and the EMs got pretty heated, because I hear one of them pull their walkie out and ask for more security to come down, especially since one of them, Security Guard 1, was about to head on break. With that being said, not even a minute later, two more security guards, 2 and 3, step in. We inform them of the situation and the group try to move along, but me and the first two stop them.
"Look, it seems like you guys are refusing to let your kids go to the back for facing consequences of the rules, and if you try to escalate things further, we're gonna ask you to leave." EMs 1 and 2 grew even more upset as they told off the guards and me, saying more of the same. They didn't do anything, they're only 14-year-old kids and you can't do this. All the while we're moving along the line as it slowly moves, and EM3 is clapping sarcastically and trying to dismiss us with something along the lines of,
Thank you, yes, you're doing your job so well, have a good night."
The security eyed her, which made her shut up with the sarcasm.
"Look, just let us go into the damn haunted house. We're already so close now anyway, and we don't want any more of this over a lie."
I was fuming at this and spoke up. "No, I saw them with my 2 eyes, and your girls have already admitted it. Just please let your girls go."
"No, they're 14, and you won't get away with this, you!"
I get spooked and feel my nerves shoot up. The guards step in and angrily scold her and told her to leave me alone. And honestly, after this, the rest of the conversation was a blur. I was really messed up after getting yelled at like that. Eventually, things cooled down and security said I can head back to my post and they'll handle the rest. But as I was trying to do so, I just couldn't hold back the tears. I cried during anxiety attacks. Thank God one of the managers was walking up to check on me a few minutes later. She asked me if I was okay, and I couldn't respond. She frowns and says, "Here, why don't you take a break?" I nodded slightly and walked along with her. As we were, who did we see? The group of EMs and the kids. I begin to panic and whisper to her and say, "It's them." She nods and tries to shield me as we speedwalk past them, but I felt myself just freeze up. I don't know why, but I couldn't help myself but look back. The group was further away, but were looking at us, and honestly, they looked somewhat guilty, embarrassed, frustrated, or upset. I don't know. I was too anxious to tell. The manager helped me calm down and get me into the employee-only area of the park. She approached my other manager and explained that I was having a hard night. Apparently security had informed her already and was told they handled everything. I don't know what it was or what they did, I was never told, but it was all done and sorted, I guess. The managers helped me calm down as I sat on the steps and just let my anxiety flow out of me, and I appreciated that, honestly. 2. Okay, so my mother-in-law hates any seasoning or spices in her food. She makes a huge deal about how much she doesn't like my cooking. I find it hurtful when she says this, and my darling husband lets her know. In mere seconds, she has tears in her eyes, saying she misspoke. Fine lady, whatever. One time, I knew they were coming because my sister-in-law mentioned how they couldn't have dinner at sister-in-law's because they were having dinner at ours. Knowing this, I made her a roast chicken. She complained about the seasoning, but I only used mixed herbs. She asked why I subject my husband to this food. He can't handle it, apparently. He has never said this. In fact, when we started dating, I'd cook him meals made in this country until he requested trying some from my country. Most meals I cook for him and I have seasoning or spices or both. He loves it and has no problem eating the food. He says he prefers it. I've lived in his country of birth since I was 2, so I love the food cooked here. I don't think a lack of seasoning or spices makes food automatically bad. Mother-in-law and father-in-law have an annoying habit of dropping by randomly without letting us know. They always stay long enough to eat dinner, and I was raised to serve even annoying, rude, and entitled people. Before we got married, my husband and I lived in my country for 3 months. He got used to eating yesterday's dinner for breakfast, and we cook more than enough food so he can eat leftovers before work. Mother-in-law and father-in-law spend the night after eating. We've noticed that there always seems to be some food missing the next morning. When we finally caught my mother-in-law, I had made bobotie, a South African casserole, and she ate only a little at dinner, stating that it was too salty and too spicy, and she didn't like how it looked. When my husband told her that's rude and to apologize or leave, she got tears in her eyes and didn't mean it to be offensive. She made herself and father-in-law sandwiches. Father-in-law loved it and refused her sandwiches. She was visibly angry and kept shooting him and I dirty looks. I don't know what woke my husband, but he went downstairs to find his mother eating all the leftovers. He called me downstairs, and mother-in-law told her she didn't want my husband to eat it because salt isn't good for you. She was starving because she only ate 2 sandwiches. This doesn't mean she likes my food. She said she hates it, but she was hungry. She said you'd eat poop if you were hungry enough. She and my husband fought because she's been doing this for months and lying about how it wasn't her, saying I was imagining it and trying to cut her out of her son's life by accusing her. We invited her and father-in-law to leave that minute. It was around 4 a.m. As soon as she left, she started telling sister-in-law that I'm a liar. I cooked her inedible food and forced her to eat it because I caught her holding the leftovers while looking for a midnight snack. She said I was angry, and I lost my mind at her. I didn't say much to her when the altercation happened. Sister-in-law told us that mother-in-law told her she wants us to pay her back for buying our house. We didn't ask her to do this. It was a surprise at our wedding. I'm in shock. Why is she doing all of this? We obviously don't have the money to pay her back since we could never afford this area. Should we just apologize so we can keep our house? As it stands, they own 60% of it, so they have every legal right to sell it. We're moving. We'll miss our old neighborhood. And since we're moving out of our town, we won't be able to request our current council to put our future kids in their amazing state schools. We're also removing our names from the deed, because if she sells it, we get 40% from the sale, and we will still owe her that 40%, and she'll use that money owed to continue threatening us. 3. So this happened a few months ago, around the end of summer. As a gift, my friend took me to an amusement park. We did typical park things like go on puke-inducing rides and spend a fortune on funnel cake. At some point, my friend had to use the restroom. I told them I'd stay where I was because I wanted to try and win him a prize from one of the games as a sort of thank you for taking me to this place. So he goes to find a restroom, and I get in line for a game that's pretty cheap, compared to other games at least. It was essentially a gigantified let's go fishing type thing, except there were small stickers inside of the mouths of the fish that dictated the size of the prize you won. Right behind the counter was a large bin of small plushies. Bigger plushies are on the walls. In front of me is an entitled mother and entitled kid. If I had to guess, the kid may have been 5 or 6. This child was obviously really small, but God forbid the mother just help the kid guide the fake fishing rod so the fish would bite it. No, the kid just had to stand on the counter so she could get a fair chance at winning. I can see why some people would think it's normal, but here's one thing I haven't mentioned yet. It was currently sprinkling, and had been for the past half hour, meaning that the entitled kid's shoes were covered with mud. Not only that, but the kid was constantly moving and walking side to side on the counter because she wanted this one specific fish. The counter was now decorated with small child shoe prints. The mother didn't even try to clean it up, just left them there for the park employee to clean. Don't worry, it gets better, folks. Or maybe worse. The kid finally catches the fish she's been trying to get. Inside the mouth was a red sticker, which meant you won the smallest prize of a roughly 4-inch long plush. I know this because I won red in my turn as well. The park employee tells the kid she has won a small plushie and can pick one that she can see. Keywords.
I don't like any of this. I want a different one.
The mother looks at the child. Do you want to go look inside the bin more? The kid nods and stomps her feet, making more mud fly.
Yeah, I want a different one.
The park employee is looking absolutely baffled.
Ma'am?
Without missing a beat, the mother picks up the kid and puts her behind the counter so she can start digging through the bin that was like 2 inches taller than her. The mother is listing some of the plushies that the kid can't see, since, as I said, the bin was slightly taller than her. The park employee puts on the gotta smile or else I'm gonna lose my job face, and starts showing the kid some of the plushies as well, presumably to get her out of there faster. I still haven't left yet because, like I said earlier, it's cheaper. I'm also pretty nosy and wanted to see where this goes. A few minutes of this cycle, the kid found 2 plushies that she really liked at the same time. Turning to the park employee, she gives her best I am the most adorable child in the world face. Puppy dog eyes and a stuck-out lip.
Can I please have both?
Sorry, kid. Rules are rules. Unless you play again, you can't have both. Just one.
I don't have any more park currency. You can only have one, says the mother. Oh my God, as soon as she said those words, the fit that the kid threw would make you think that she had fire ants crawling in her hair. She was screaming, crying, stomping, throwing the plushies, and throwing herself to the ground. The worst part, though, was that when EM picked the kid up, she was basically pulling her by the legs while the kid was determined to keep her fingers gripped onto the counter. Her knuckles were literally turning white. She eventually pulled her off, picked a random plushie, and took her away. I actually heard her trying to bribe the kid with park treats like deep-fried Oreos and cotton candy if she would stop crying, because at this point a whole bunch of eyes were watching them. I finally got up to the counter where the park employee was cleaning the mud off his counter, looking like he wanted nothing more than to lay on the ground and use the big plushie on the wall as a pillow. That was something. I'm sorry you had to deal with that, man. He's angry, although not at me, the situation.
I don't understand why people think they can do that. Like, you're not allowed to come behind the counter.
Yeah, people are assholes.
I'm never having kids.
Same, also don't worry, I won't jump the counter for my prize. We laugh, I play a few games and win a few small plushies. My friend finally comes back and I give him my prize, then tell him what happened. He found it quite amusing. We were a bit damp afterwards, but we had a great time. 4. I recently graduated from high school. For my final 2 years of schooling, I attended this new, funny cottage school that recently opened up in my town. My family couldn't afford my previous school's fees, so I transferred to the new school. We'll call it Silver Spoon School. The school was run by a family that recently moved down from out of town and had enrolled their own kids into their brand new school. The school was, and still is, at the time of me posting this, illegal. Blah blah blah, legal stuff and registrations, whatever. Myself and 6 other students were in grade 11 when all of this entitlement started to show. Now, there were only 2 girls in my grade, me and the principal's daughter. She and I became good friends, and I even introduced her to my friends from my previous school. She was a year younger than me and unsocialized, a little immature for her age. The first school year was amazing, because it was relaxed, no uniforms, like 5 kids a grade. So chill for a little anxious kid like myself. I mean, we were barely a high school. Then out of the blue, her mom created a hierarchy system. Prefects, head boy and head girl. A super common system where I live, but not for small cottage schools like Silver Spoon School. They cemented that the votes would be cast via a Google form, and the winner was based on popularity. For context, I've lived in this town for my whole life and knew everyone in my little school, and I find myself the most popular amongst the younger grades. To be fair, I used to vape with them in the bathrooms and stuff. So I assumed I would win the popular vote, especially since my friend had just moved down and barely spoke a word to the kids outside our grade. After voting, I was told that all the students voted me into the head girl, so I was chilling with the notion that I was gonna be head girl. Not that it was something I was dying to achieve. Well, cut to like a month later, and we're doing this little ceremony, and the head girl was the principal's daughter. It was so weird considering they said it was a popularity vote. Line number 1. The ceremony was a bust, and so many students come up to me confessing that nobody voted for her. Only her own mother and her younger brother. Strange, but she and I continue to be friends up until the start of this year, grade 12. For more context, we were the first grade 11 class and grade 12 class at Silver Spoon School, so this is our second year of being the oldest grade. I'll save more of the lies and illegalities for my grade 12 year, but it was horrible. Throughout grade 12, she was allowed to go back and fix mistakes on her tests to increase her marks if her mum decided they were too low. Highly immoral, since grade 12 curriculums are super strict about that stuff. Her mum was also our English teacher, so she always got insight on tests and internal exams, as well as free support lessons from staff, because her mother was the principal. She even had her marks altered, so she would always be the top of the class, and I know this, because I've seen her marks. She's not very clever. She literally failed 2 subjects. The top of the grade was me. I had the highest marks, which isn't saying much because we were a class of 7. Anyway, I just don't see how 2 failed subjects, I think a pass is like 40%, can get you to top in the grade. I'm salty, I know. You see, she wants to be a vet, and her mum will do anything to make her university presentable on paper. Luckily, all our final exams are external, so what really matters at the end of the year won't be tampered with. Spoilers, we saw one of our final exams, LO, that we wrote in September. I got an 80%, highest mark, and she got a 47? If you're familiar with South African final exams, then you know that you finish LO in the 3rd term, so that's why it's the only exam mark we've seen thus far. This is where the entitlement ends, though, because she's redoing her grade 12 online under a different syllabus. Good luck with being a vet. Let's see how far mommy's manipulation can take you in the real world. like her high school experience was handed to her on a silver spoon. Now that's entitlement. 5. Years ago, my wife and I were young in our careers, broke as hell, and our oldest boy's only Christmas wish was a laptop computer. This was out of our reach financially, so I had been looking everywhere for a good deal on one. I found an ad for a Radio Shack holiday special selling a pretty decent laptop for under $200 in their Black Friday sale. This was at the time an incredible price. I went down to the Radio Shack and chatted a bit with the staff to find out what to expect and how many they had. They admitted to me that they only had one, and that they only had one or two of their other doorbuster items. They opened up at 5 a.m., and the guy I chatted with recommended that I arrive early if I wanted it. Okay, maximum effort. After our Thanksgiving dinner, I took a turkey-induced nap, and after we put the kids to bed, I headed down to the strip mall with a book and a camp chair. I was the only one, so I sat up right by the door. It was after midnight, before anyone else arrived, and people trickled in between then and about 3 a.m. Everyone was pretty chatty about what they wanted. At first, I was the only one who was there for the laptop. When it got closer to opening, there were some different sorts of people showing up, some trying to talk their way into line, buy a spot for $20 or whatever. About 4 a.m., a guy rolls up in a flashy car, some luxury brand I don't remember, and comes straight to the head of the line with his Starbucks coffee in hand. He gives me a story about how his kid has cancer, and that kid's only Christmas wish was that specific laptop. I tell the guy, "Sorry, but this was my kid's Christmas wish too. That's why I'm here." The guy keeps turning it up. He gets really mean and nasty about how selfish we all are, that we don't want to help a cancer kid, and gets right into my personal space. I keep telling him no, and his tone continues to escalate. At that point, I stood up, folded my camp chair, and told him, "I'm just some guy without much money, but I got up early enough to be the first in line here. If my kid was battling cancer, I would have been here earlier. And I sure as hell wouldn't have taken the time to stop for coffee. Either you're a liar or a terrible dad, but either way I'm not moving. Next time get up earlier." I'd like to say everyone clapped, but mostly they just tried to stay out of it and look the other way. The guy just went to the end of the line and everyone else looked embarrassed. The nice, chatty, excited vibe was gone. I could tell by the guy's body language that he was going to try and rush in and get what he wanted after the doors opened. But the shack employees did a great job. Just before 5 a.m., they came out with a clipboard and went down the line, writing down our names and which doorbuster we were buying. Then they gave me a slip with the laptop model printed on it. They had all of the limited quantity items behind the counter, and I was out of there with the laptop in hand in about 5 minutes flat. Next time, get up earlier. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to The Impractical Proudness of Parents, Ipop, episode 122. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. If you'd like to get the videos a little bit earlier, then you can support me through my Patreon page, which is linked in the description. And you can also find a link to the Hellfreezer merchandise store. Get yourself some hoodies and mugs, and you probably buy a hoodie and shove it into the mug, but it wouldn't fit because it's too small, so don't do that. You can also make donations during streams and videos like this one. Just click on that little heart with the $sign and select the amount you'd like to donate. Think of it like a tip jar, because, well, that's what it is. You don't have to do that. You don't ever have to do that. I mean, in fact, if any YouTuber's making you think that you have to, they're a poopy hat. But I do appreciate everyone who does, and I appreciate everyone who doesn't, but the money's still nice. Okay. I don't think... oh, wait, no, there is a shout-out today. The shout-out goes to GeoDraws. That's our non-binary friend who worked at the haunted house with the entitled girls who thought they could just, jump over a fence and put themselves at risk, even though that was a danger. And cutting in line or not, guaranteed if they'd hurt themselves, their parents would have sued the people running the haunt. So, always best to follow the rules, eh? Thank you very much for allowing us to use your story, Geo Draws. Of course, anyone whose story I use is entitled to a shout-out, just let me know. And if you yourself would like a birthday shout-out or anything like that, you can send that to kingofthecities@gmail.com. Email is on the screen right now. It's also in the description of every video. All I ask, if it's for a birthday shout-out or an anniversary or anything like that, do try to get it in at least a week before you need it. Longer is better, because it means there's more chance I'll get it in the video you want it in. If it's a few days before you want it done, it probably won't be in that week's videos, because I make the videos a week ahead. Okay, I think that's all the business today, so let's move right along to Hellfreezer's question of the day. And today's question comes thanks to a lovely member of the community and of the Discord, Newcomb, and that is, how many pillows do you like to sleep with? Well, I can tell you that right now. I have 4 pillows on my bed. I generally sleep on 2 at a time, but it's nice to have extras so I can prop myself up if I need to, because those of you who suffer with acid reflux will know that sometimes it's not fun times. I can usually just lay down and I'm okay, thank goodness, but sometimes I need to prop myself up a little bit, just so that I'm comfy while I'm trying to sleep. But generally, yeah, I sleep on 2. There's a puffy one, then there's a sort of flattened one. That's the one I rest my head on, and I'll just kind of like fold that and position it as needed. But why don't you let me know what you think in a comment below? Maybe you sleep on one of those fancy pillows that it kind of goes around you and it helps alleviate neck pain and such. Yeah, come to think of it, it's probably about time I renewed my pillows. Anyway, let me know what you think in a comment below. And with that, I'm going to head off for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.